So the year is 1995, and two popular black stars of two of the most iconic black sitcoms on television are set to headline a movie originally written for Dana Carvey and Jon Lovitz called Bulletproof Hearts. But for some reason, Martin Lawrence, who up to this point had a moderately successful career with his own sitcom, Martin, Bit Parts and Do the Right Thing, Talking Dirty After Dark, House Party, and Boomerang, was asked, after he was cast, who do you want to co-star in this buddy cop movie with you? And he, producers Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, and Columbia Pictures all agreed on one name, Will Smith. Hence, Bad Boys was born. There's a lot of history behind this movie that I didn't realize. Like I mentioned before, it was originally a starring vehicle for Dana Carvey and Jon Lovitz called Bulletproof Hearts. And it was your generic buddy cop film. But when Dana Carvey went to Vegas with producer Don Simpson, who at the time was a coke addict, running from the mafia, and was a party animal, and now he's dead, it freaked him out so much that Dana Carvey pulled out the film. And its original studio, Disney, put the film in turnaround, right? And then Columbia swooped in and snapped up the rights. And they were going to make it with Martin Lawrence and Arsenio Hall. But Arsenio, who thought he was hot stuff at the time, was going to make the same mistake that Will Smith made 3 years later when he turned down The Matrix for Wild Wild West. They both realized they made one of the biggest mistakes in their career. Bad Boys was director Michael Bay's first feature film. Now, if you don't know who Michael Bay is, he went on to direct The Rock, Armageddon, and Transformers. This man hated the script so much. He thought it was terrible. So what he did, he allowed Will and Martin to improvise all of their lines. And in my opinion, that's what gave the movie some flavor. So if you haven't seen Bad Boys, which if you haven't, I don't know why you're watching this video in the first place. It's a movie about two Miami police officers who are basically trying to stop a drug dealer from making some money. The first one sets the precedent for the entire Bad Boys series. It opens with Martin Lawrence doing something to mess up Will Smith's Porsche. This time, he's eating a burger and fries while they're driving down the street. And Will is freaking out because he's like, dude, don't get none of that stuff on any parts of my car. And Martin drops a fry between the seat and the console. And I hate it when that happens. I still have fries in my car from college. As a matter of fact, there's no eating allowed in my car whatsoever. If I catch you eating in my car, I will kick you out while we're still moving on the highway. Don't test me. So there's an attempted carjacking on the Porsche, and Will and Martin get into an argument to distract the carjackers and all that stuff, and then they pull out their guns and announce they're police officers, and now we're established of who Will and Martin are in this universe. So after that, a group of drug-dealing thugs break into the Miami police station, and they steal a cache of heroin from the evidence room. So Will and Martin are assigned the task of tracking down where the heroin went, and then they find out that there's going to be a big deal going down in Act 3. So Will goes to his informant, Max, this fine-ass, brown-skinned, delicious-looking sister, and he asks her to keep her eyes open for any dudes that just came into money. Because, you know, dudes that never had money before they get money, they show out and give themselves away. In the meantime, Martin's having issues with his sassy-ass wife at home, and it shows that their marriage are on the rocks because they haven't had sex in a while. Martin's never home because he's busy at work. Does this lady not realize that he's a police officer in a port city? He's trying to get sex, but he can't. She complains that he's too busy. He's always eating junk food, burgers and fries, Skittles. We got Will Smith over here running with the shirt open. So Will's informant Max gets word that somebody has just come into some money. So her and her friend Tia Leone, white girl, that was in Jurassic Park 3. They disguise themselves as escorts and hangs out with the dude, and then the bad guy, this French dude, comes in, and Tia witnesses her friend Max get murdered by the French drug dealer. And She calls the police department, and she only will speak to Will Smith. And it just so happens that Martin is there because Will Smith is off investigating the murder of his friend and his informant. And Martin Lawrence has to act like he's Will Smith. So he gets on the phone. He's like, yeah, this is me, Will Smith. And they have to do this switcheroo of identities. So what ends up happening is that Martin stays in Will Smith's apartment with Tia to protect her. And Will goes and stays with Martin's family. And of course, hijinks ensues. Tia's expecting that Will Smith is suave and debonair and gets all the ladies and he's tall, and Martin is none of those things in this movie. And then he's hanging out with his wife, and Will's hanging out with Martin's wife, and he's getting along more with Martin's wife than Martin did. They have a misunderstanding. They have a fight. There's a bunch of gunfights. They crash a bunch of cars, and then eventually in Act 3, an airplane blows up. This is a classic 90s movie. It checks all of the boxes of these type of buddy cop films you used to see in the 80s and 90s. It's basically Lethal Weapon and a blacker version of Beverly Hills Cop. You can practically see the cocaine dust all over this movie. To be honest with you, I enjoy Michael Bay movies. This time he didn't have a lot of money. He only had $17 million, which is way more money than I've ever had in my life. But it's not a lot of money for what you're trying to do in a big action film. So there was only one scene with bikini-clad ladies that he could do with the money he had. I've also noticed that Michael Bay is always making fun of Latinos in his movies. Like, for example, there's two Cuban cops that are the rivals of Will and Martin in this movie, and every time they speak Spanish, Will and Martin basically tell them that they need to speak English because they're in America. One aspect that I do enjoy of the Bad Boys movies too is that how they approach racism in the Bad Boys movies, because they never actually have a moment where they talk about racism as is. There's a scene in the movie where they go into a 7-Eleven or a Quickie Mart or whatever, and of course the owner, the guy behind the counter, is your stereotypical Arab guy, right? Tia walks in, white lady, and he's happy to see her. But as soon as Will and Martin walk in, all of a sudden it turns into menace to society. And the guys get nervous, not realizing they're police officers. He sees the gun under their jackets. He pulls out a Desert Eagle pistol, points it at them, and he's trying to swear, but he can't swear right because he's foreigner or he's an immigrant or whatever. And it's interesting how it touches upon all of the Bad Boys movies do it. They touch upon the racism between immigrants and black folks, and it's really funny, and I love it to see two black men basically standing up for themselves. I mean, in the scene, they pull their guns out and they tell them to shut up, and they give them some Skittles and some Bubblicious. I don't condone violence. I'm just saying in the movie, it's pretty funny to see two black men stand up to racism the way they do in Bad Boys without staying in it, without making it a big deal. It's a quick scene, but it's a funny, satisfying scene. Of course, there's a chase scene with Will Smith running like a GQ model with his shirt open. It's pretty funny because Michael Bay does this a lot too. He has like funny gags when there's a big chase scene to kind of like take you out of it a little bit. Will almost runs into a group of supermodels that are taking photos, which is that one scene of Pretty Women that Michael Bay could afford. He runs into a group of old ladies in the salon. He tells them they look fabulous. And he runs into a group of wheelchair-bound basketball players, amputees, if you will. I don't know why he put that in. That's like something I would put in the movie just because. They even have a 6'7" nerdy IT black convict in this movie. Talking about representation, I felt seen. Bad Boys, the reason I like Bad Boys so much is because it shows black men as masculine, vulnerable, funny, taking charge, and they're cool guys that everybody wants to be. As a matter of fact, there's a part in the movie where it's established that Will Smith has a trust fund. He's a rich guy. His family had money and all that stuff. And basically, Martin was like, hey man, you got money now. Everyone has money. And Will goes, I should not be ashamed because I was blessed with money. I'm a cop like everybody else. And I want to do what's right and stop the bad guys. I was like, go ahead, Will Smith. He ain't slapped nobody in this movie, though. For some reason, and the truth of the matter is, I'm excited to see Bad Boys Ride or Die, because for some reason, we're not making these movies anymore. Remember, this is at a time that Will Smith and Martin weren't necessarily huge stars at the time. Michael Bay had to fight the studios to make this movie starring these two men, because at this time, studios thought that black films or movies starring black actors did not translate overseas. They had no idea. They thought it was going to be a failure, but these two, Martin and Will, proved them wrong, and now they're worldwide superstars. So tomorrow, I'm going to review Bad Boys 2. And if you've gotten this far, you seem to have liked the video, so make sure that you like, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, comment below so that we can continue this conversation about Bad Boys leading up to the release of the 4th Bad Boys movie, Bad Boys Ride or Die. Catch y'all later.